So we're learning the Maimer. Lhavin in Tchiyas Hameisim, Tavshin Mevav. We started the Maimer last week, and where we left off is that the Rebbe said a tremendous chiddush in Tchiyas Hameisim. That in the time of Tchiyas Hameisim, there's going to be two Tekufos and two Inyanim. The first Inyan in Tchiyas Hameisim is going to be that then there will be the Gilui of the mitzvahs that the Yidden are Mekayim in Zman HaGolus. But the Rebbe says that there's actually a second and a higher Inyan in Tchiyas Hameisim, which then there will be the Gilui of the Maila of the Yidden themselves, that the Yidden are Moshesh and Atzmus, the Yidden are rooted in Atzmus. Before Tchiyas Hameisim, you can't see it. The Yid looks like a regular human being. And this tremendous tainug that the Eibshter has in the Yid, you can't see. By Tchiyas Hameisim, there's going to be the Gilui of a Yid as he's Moshesh and Atzmus, that he's Neitzer Matoi, Masiyad Elispoy, he's the branch that came from the Eibshter himself. And the Rebbe says furthermore that this is actually the main inyan of Tchiyas Hameisim. The inyan in Tchiyas Hameisim that's spoken about in so many other ma'amorim, that it's the Gilui of Atzmus that was nimshach through mitzvahs, is actually not the primary inyan of Tchiyas Hameisim. The main inyan of Tchiyas Hameisim is the Gilui of the Maila of the Yid. Now the Rebbe is going to continue. We're going to try to finish the Maimer today. We'll see, so the pace will be a little quicker. It's a little. The truth is that it's Edel and Yanim. It doesn't sound deep. But the truth is that it could require a lot of explanation. We'll see how much of it we'll be able to do. But we're going to focus on moving. Mitzvah Hashem next week, I'd like to start Purim Maimer if we can. Okay, let's see. So, Eish Dalet. Ubir Inyan. Steva said that there are three general madrigas that come beyond Ilam Hazeh. The Gimel Madrigas Elu. The first madriga that comes beyond Ilam Hazeh is Gan Eden, which Steva said that's the Gili of the Eir HaMemaleh. And then you have Beis Adagas with Tchiyas Hameisim, the two Madrigas in Tchiyas Hameisim, which is the Gili of the Eir HaSeviv and the Gili of Atzmos. So what's going on over here? Isa b'Gemara, it says in Gemara, Kol Navim Kulan, all of the Nevuos going to get to the La'asi Lavai Leini Snabu El Yemei Mashiach. Their Nevuos only saw and they only spoke about the times of Yemei Mashiach. But there's going to come a time afterwards, Leilam Haba, and on that time, Ayin Leirasa Lakim Zulasacha, no eye, not even the eye of the Nevim, have seen it besides for the Eibishter. That's a Lashon HaPasuk. That's what the Gemara says. And the Gemara explains weiter, what's this inyan of Ayin Leirasa? What's this Madrega? My Ayin Leirasa is Eden. This is the Madrega of Eden. Shleishalta ba'in kol beria. And this higher Madrega of Eden, no, the eye of any creation has never seen it. Shema Teimar, you might ask me, says the Gemara, began. Right? Where was Adam Rishon? Gan Eden, that doesn't say that word over here. I didn't look at the Gemara inside, so I'm not sure what the lashon over there is. So he says Gan Lechud ve'Eden Lechud. Adam Rishon was in Gan Eden, but he was actually in the place of the Gan. Eden, Eden is one madrega and Gan is another madrega. Don't try to make a cholent, says the Gemara. Don't try to make a mishmash. It's not one thing, Gan Eden. There's two madregas. There's Gan and there's Eden. And Adam Rishon was in Gan and not in Eden. Eden is reserved for the Lasid Lave, and that's what the pasuk means when it says Ayin Leirasa Lakim Zulasacha. Not stam for Lasid Lave, but for Tchiyas Hameisim. What's the chiddush and what's the mila? What's the advantage and the novelty of Tchiyas Hameisim L'gabe Yemei Mashiach? According to this Gemara, we understand that the chiddush of Elam Haba L'gabe Tchiyas Hameisim L'gabe Yemei Mashiach is that then there will be the revelation of this bechina, of this thing called Eden. Move on. And from this Gemara, we can understand that this and Elam Haba, the says Tchiyas Hameisim, there's already going to be the revelation of Kima Mitzvahs, like Rebbe mentioned before. Still, since the revelation of the mitzvahs will already be during the times of Yemei Mashiach. And the Gemara says that the Madrega of Tchiyas Hameisim is something that won't exist, not even in Yemei Mashiach. The Nevi'im were only able to perceive the times of Mashiach. But Tchiyas Hameisim will be beyond it. So anything that was in Yemei Mashiach, for example, the Hamshacha that came through Kima Mitzvahs, Ein Zeh Amitasin in Elam Haba. This cannot be the true inyan of Elam Haba. The Ikar inyan of Elam Haba, the primary idea of Elam Haba, of Tchiyas Hameisim, Hu Hagilu D'Bchinas Eden, is that then we will have the revelation of this level called Eden. And what is Eden? Eden is Meloshin Tainig, Meloshin pleasure, V'hu HaTainig HaAtzmi. Shemis Anig B'Yisrael. This is the Tainig Atzmi of the Eibishter. that the Eibishter takes pleasure in the Yidden, which is even higher than the time that the Eibishter takes from the performance of from the study of Torah and from the performance of mitzvahs. Yeah, if anybody wants to venture to explain what's pshat Tainug Atzmi as opposed to not a Tainug Atzmi, it's not such a. I'm sure it's just explained by many people in many places. I just don't have clarity on it. No, it's nicht as active. It's
No, I'm
a
saying
close
Tainug Atzmi is it's when you're putting it into Torah mitzvahs, it's already something. The Tainug is already dependent on that.
Good.
And when you're saying Tainug Atzmi, that Yisrael is in of Tainug for itself, without there's no Torah mitzvahs involved.
Not Tainug for itself, but Tainug from himself.
From himself.
So let's lamashal ulay shleima. I'm saying it would make sense to me to say that a person has Tainug from understanding of Bar Seichel.
That's the of God.
Say this news recently can sein. So a person, for example, takes Tainug from understanding of Dvar Seichel. And this Dvar Seichel, when he gets the new idea, this new thing that he never heard of before, and it's a beautiful thought, it gives him a certain amount of pleasure. It gives him a great amount of pleasure. It's actually described as the highest level of pleasure. So when a person has this Tainug, where does the Tainug come from? It comes mitzad Keach HaSeichel. So the Keach HaSeichel compared to the essence of the person himself, right? This we discussed many times. That Seichel is not the person himself. Seichel is almost like a detail in the person, right? As opposed to so many thinkers who think, I think, therefore I am, and in the lashon of one of the famous guys, I don't know his name, but because I think, well, what makes me in existence? The fact that I think. So that's the highest thing. And therefore, you don't have to have any conscience, you don't have to have any morality. Whatever comes by me in Seichel, that's what's true, and that's what I could do. That's almost what came out of that philosopher's way of thinking. I can't remember who it is. There's something much deeper than Seichel, which that is the person himself. And the Tainug Atzmi would mean, and not a Tainug that comes with Seichel. Seichel is what's called a Murkav. It's something that's made up of parts. It's something that's outside of him, and there's details like this and like that. But then there's a simple Tainug that the person just has that comes from himself. So al derech zeh, like you were saying, l'chura, the Tainug in Torah and mitzvahs is something mitzad legabi the Eibishter. Torah and mitzvahs is a thing. It's not the Eibishter himself, even though it's chachmasay, and even though we're going to see soon, the mitzvahs come what he calls even from atzmusay, but it's still not atzmusay mamish, and therefore it's not a Tainug Atzmi. It's a Tainug that he takes in a thing. Mashenkin the Yidden are mushrush in atzmusay mamish. And therefore, the Tainug that the Eibishter takes in the Yidden is not like a Tainug that comes from something else. It's a Tainug Atzmi. It's a Tainug that he takes from himself. Okay, yeah, it works.
In 28, it says you can only reach that Tainug Atzmi not through Torah mitzvahs, but only through tshuva,
and
which takes you higher than Torah mitzvahs.
Which is what's this thing that's higher than Torah mitzvahs? The neshama, and the neshama comes from the Eibishter Alein. From Atzmus. And like I said, he's going to say something that mitzvahs also come from Atzmus, but Lagabe the Yidden, it's not considered Atzmus. It says everything is events of Humanet. So Lagabe everything else, mitzvahs is considered Atzmus, but it's in a lower, as if you could be Mechalik, you can't be Mechalik when Degas and Atzmus. But it comes from Lagabe the Yid, it's not Mamish Atzmus. Like you said on the top of the page, you see, in Harda 22 from the top of the page, Omar Kamitish Lanshon, Kmoy Ba Mitas HaAtzmus. Says a lashon from Samachulav Amitas Ha'atzmus. About Kalpanim, Lahayir, Shibakam Mekemis Muvora Chiluk Ben Torah LeMitzvahs. In other places, it's explained the difference between Torah and mitzvahs. The Torah she Chachmasi Yisbarach Melubash Ha'ordas HaTainug. In the Torah, which is the Chachma of the Eibishter, Chachma is already a Keach Pnimi. So over there, only the reflection of the Tainug, but not the Tainug itself, is enclosed. Over mitzvahs, however, in mitzvahs, however, in the mitzvahs that are the ratzon of the Eibishter is already melubash atzmus hatainug b'chinas eden. Over there is already melubash the essence of the tainug, which this is b'chinas eden. So I'm thinking as we're going along. He uses over here the lashon the mitzvahs shem letzeni yisparach. The mitzvahs which are the ratzon of the Eibishter. This haste. In a person, there are the keches pnimim and the keches makifim. Everybody knows the keches pnimim is seichel and midas, and the keches makifim is tainug and ratzon. So, lagabe the keches pnimim, sai tainug and sai ratzon are considered to be atzmim. They're part of the atzmas of the nefesh, legabi the keches of seichel and midas. But if you want to go in detail, so you have tainug and you have rotzen. And rotzen is a lower madrega from tainug. Why does a person have a rotzen in something? Because of the tainug that he has from it. So the tainug is what brings about the rotzen, and the rotzen is a chitzen compared to the tainug, even though bechlolus, they're far more in the etzem of the person than our seichel and midas. So l'chura, that what he's saying over here is that the mitzvahs, which are the tzene yisparich, even though they could be considered an atzmus, and it could be melubish in the atzmus of the tainug, nevertheless, they're still rotzen and they're not the madrega of tainug. So we have a question. Before, on the other side of the page, we just said that only in the Yidden is melubish atzmus of tainug. Masha'enkein in Teira and mitzvahs not, but in other Mamonim it's explained that Teira is where atzmus of tainug is not melubish, but in mitzvahs you do have atzmus of tainug. So that's the question. We're going to get to the answer in a moment. And this is why when I get to Gan Eden, it says, and this is the first Madega that comes after this world, it says that there's a river that goes out of Eden in order to water the garden. The pleasure that's drawn down to the neshamis in Gan Eden that they get from their comprehension of Torah, like we've said before, the likus shabbatayra hurakam shacham mitzumtzemes b'mchinas Eden. This is only a constricted and constrained hamshacha that's drawn down from the level of Eden, and therefore it's called only a ha'ara. Shenimshachas haladei hanor shemachzik ben Eden lagan, which is nimshach through the nahar, which separates between Eden and Gan. So once you're in Gan, you don't have Eden, you only have whatever can make it through the Nahar, which is what he calls the Ha'ar of the Tainug. Which then is going to be the reward for the mitzvahs. So over there is not going to be the Hamshacha that comes through the river, but rather there's going to be the revelation of Eden itself. So we have a question. Why are we saying that Davka in the second level of Tchiyas Hameisim, when there's going to be the ha'ara of the Maila of the Yidden, only then will there be Gili Atzmus Atainug? So he says, because Bechlalis, those Mamarim are speaking Bechlalis. Avil Beplatius, but if you want to speak more specifically, Kivin Sha'agili da HaMitzvahs here, Bechlalis Gam B'Yamei Mashiach, like you mentioned before already, since the revelation of the mitzvahs is already going to exist in the times of Mashiach, and nevertheless, the Gemara says, which this is B'chinas Eden. Nevertheless, the Gemara says that in Yemei Mashiach, even though we have the Gili of mitzvahs, that still doesn't count as the revelation of Eden. The Gili B'chinas Zu Yirak B'Elam Haba, and the revelation of this level will be only in Elam Haba. Muchach Mizet. So we understand from the Sheikah B'chinas Eden, Shia B'Elam Haba Shos Yiskala Hatayin Ga'atzmis Misanik B'Yisrael, that the primary level of Eden, which will be in Elam Haba, is not the Tainig and mitzvahs, but rather the Tainig that the Eibshter takes in Yidden, which is also higher, which is even higher than the Tainig Atzmi that the Eibshter takes in mitzvahs. Okay, Akitzer, he says that the Gili of mitzvahs, of the Hamshach of mitzvahs, is going to be also during the time of Tchiyas Hameisim. If it's also going to be during the time of Tchiyas Hameisim, then it can't be the Gili of Eden. Because the Gemara says that when you get to Eden, even in Yemei Mashiach, you're not going to have it, the level of Eden. So anything that we have in Yemei Mashiach, for example, the Gili of mitzvahs, can't be that it's the Inyan of Eden itself. And therefore, the mitzvahs can't be it. There must be the Tainug that the Eibshter has in the Yidden. Not working out?
Mm-hmm.
It is working out. Good.
Eden will not be, even when the Yemei Mashiach.
Even in Yemei Mashiach, nicht.
Only by Elam Haba.
The Gemara says that when it gets to Elam Haba, it says Ein Leirasa Lakim Zulasach, and the Gemara explains that what's this Ein Leirasa that the Nevi'im couldn't see because they could only see Yemei Mashiach, and this is something that doesn't exist in Yemei Mashiach. The Gemara explains that's the Bechin of Eden. So David says that the mitzvahs is going to be the Gil of mitzvahs is going to be in Yemei Mashiach, so this can't be Eden. What's going on over here? Yeah, what's the beer over here in the Maila that we're going to have when it comes to Tchiyas Hameisim? Lagabi, what we're going to have? Yeah, we know that it's going to be this inning of Eden that can't exist earlier. But a shtickle abir, what is this Eden that we can't have before? So he says first we're going to understand that through understanding the Gmaila of Tchiyas of Yemais Mashiach legabe Gan Eden. So let's start with that. In order to understand the Maila of Tchiyas Hameisim legabe Yemais Mashiach.
The second level in.
Now he's going to say, no, in Tchiyas Hameisim, you mean.
There's Hameisim Mashiach, and then that's Tchiyas Hameisim after that, right?
Right. And then within that, so to understand that, you've behektem. First, let's try and understand what's the Maila of Yemais Mashiach legabe Gan Eden?
Which Gan Eden is even now.
It's now, but it's not. Can't be in a Gashmistic world. So it's the first thing that's beyond the experience of Elam Hazeh.
So there's going to be Gan Eden before Yemais Mashiach?
No. Gan Eden is now, but even though it's now, but it's still beyond Elam Hazeh. It's not something that can. So it's one level up from what could be experienced in the world that's before Mashiach. Says I'm saying in a Gashmistic Welt before Mashiach comes. So what's the first thing that could be experienced, that could comprehended beyond that? So the first thing is Gan Eden, even though it's before Mashiach comes, but because it's outside of Gashmi Elam Hazeh, so it's a Madega that's higher than only Neshamas, but it's a Madega higher than Elam Hazeh, than Al-Kopanim, than Elam Hazeh of Yemei Sagolos. So what's the mile of Gan Eden Lagabe Elam Hazeh? So he says like this. I'm sorry. What's the mila of Yemais Mashiach legabe Gan Eden? So it says like this: Shagilu de Gan Eden hu dafkel neshamas b'lei gufi. When it comes to the revelations of Gan Eden, they can only be experienced by neshamas after they leave their body. It can't be. The body is too limiting for it. V'hagilu de Yemais Mashiach mashenkin the gilu for Yemais Mashiach gam lemata ve'elam hazeh will be also down here in this physical world hagashmi. Like the Gemara says. That it's going to grow sweet foods, I think.
But it's going to be in a Gashmistic way.
In a Gashmistic way. Clearly, wegen Gashmistic Sachen. Klar that hate. So why is this? Like you mentioned earlier in the Maimon, that the Gilui of Tchiyas Hameisim is of Yemais Mashiach is going to be higher, but it's still going to be able to be experienced in Gashmis. So first, let's understand what's this idea that in order to experience something higher, you have to be in the Neshama B'lei Guf. It says like this. Let's see. In Gan Eden, you have the revelation of the Eid HaMemale. So in Elam Hazeh, you don't have the Gilui of Eid HaMemale. Eid HaMemale taka fills up the whole world and it creates everything in it. Aber kennst du es nicht denn?
Eid HaMemale?
Kennst du denn der Eid HaMemale?
Aber selber kennen wir nicht denn. Aber Eid HaMemale...
Wo sagst du das?
Das ist eine Welt. Ich kenne es ja, aber Tzadikim kennen sein. Aber you could see that Baravai was the Mahaba, the Mechayis. Don't mention was kennen sein. We're not.
It's an interesting chakira at the point that you make. But Bechlalus, yeah. Bechlalus, in Gan Eden, Bechlalus hat von Shalom und Kogel. And in Gan Eden,
who was saying went through the wall? Through the wall happens.
The Mitteler, I think, by the Chassan.
No, the Alter Rebbe.
By the Shlovna. Each one didn't want to go before the other one.
Well, you and maybe the joke, anything about Avapliskin, something there. Was something. It's a joke. Something with saying in the Torah. Yeah. Okay.
Say it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me get invited. Yeah. So it says like this. Okay. So he says like this, in Gan Eden, what's the revelation of Gan Eden? In Gan Eden, you have the revelation of the Eid HaMemale, and the Eid HaMemale is the Eid Mugbal. Like I said, it doesn't sound so hard, but to properly understand it, you have to, we'd have to understand it right. We're gonna keep going. Since it's a light whose definition is definition, was is Pshat Eid Mugbal? That every single thing has a eisgestelte art and a eisgestelte Platz and a eisgestelte Eifen of how it exists. So therefore, it can't come down. It can't come down. Lamata is not right to have the light of Memale, of Gan Eden, and therefore it can't come here. In the times of Mashiach, there's going to be the revelation of the Ein Sof HaBilti Mugbal, the unlimited or undefined light of the Eibishter. And therefore the Gili will be also down here in this world.
Once it's built in Mugbal, is Mailamata Shavim. Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah, La'erech. Because we're going to see there's still Chulukim Madregas in it. About Kopanim La'erech, the Azeh is Dinim. What do we have over here?
That's basically Saver.
Da flying Samach Vav is it have to say. Can this get a But
and I'm base.
Aber was ist a Eire Mugabal? Eire Mugabal Marshal, we can start with the basic marshal that's given in the sentence. Yeah. A person is made up of a soul and of a body. Everybody understands that the flesh can't have thoughts, that the flesh can't see. What's the difference between a flesh when the body is alive and the body is dead? Nothing. The flesh is still there. Why does a human being who's made out of flesh and blood have all of these, what do you call them? Spiritual abilities, things that are not of the body, things that are not physical. Thoughts are not physical. Feelings are not physical. The sense of sight is not physical. All of these things are not physical. Where does it come from? It comes from the neshama. Okay? So you have the keiches of the neshama are made in the body. However, these keiches, each one has its own special limb that it has to go into. The neshama has the ability to see. But this keich of seeing, if it embodied itself in the finger, you wouldn't be able to see. Or you could put it the other way, the keich hariyah can't come into the finger because the finger is not a kli roi for the keich hariyah. In other words, these keiches of the neshama are mugbal dika keiches. They're defined keiches, they're specific keiches. The keich of sight, the keich of thought, the keich of hearing, they're all different ones. And therefore, each one needs a specific type of garment that it could come into that could let it express itself. Not very different from the way a person has to have a shirt. A shirt has to have sleeves, and it has to be able to fit around his torso, and it has to have a hole for the neck. If it's not in that shape, then a person can't enclose himself in it, because the levush isn't roi for the keich. And so too with all of the keiches of the person. Keich hazrika is dafke in the hand. The ability to throw something is dafke in the hand. The eye can't, and it can't enclose itself in the eye. Mashenkin, you see other keiches that could come everywhere. For example, the keich haratzin. The keich haratzin is not a keich mukbal. The keich haratzin is not, what's ratzin? Ratzin is it's specific to the eye, it's specific to the heart, it's specific to the head. It's something that takes over the person in general. How could you see that it takes over the person in general? Over here, he has a ratzin to move his foot, so his foot moves. Over there, he has a ratzin to move his hand, so his hand moves. Everything is controlled by one thing, his whole body.
Instantaneously.
And it happens instantaneously, and that's part of Taka. It's part of, if we were discussing this in particular, and if I would have prepared, maybe we could get into that also. But the keich haratzin is not a keich mugbal. It's a keich seviv, it's a keich makif, if you wish. And therefore, it can exist, sai in the foot and sai in the hand. Because ratzin doesn't have the definition, the limitations of the keich hariyah and the keich haseichel v'chul. In Gan Eden, you have the gilui of the keiches of memale, of eir ha-memale. And the eiris of memale are of a lower sort than the eir ha-seviv, and they have a definition. And since they have a definition, then they can only come to a place that's roi for them to come, similar to how the keich of sight of the person can only come into his eye. So, l'mashal, if you have a gilui no, now I'm stuck. L'mashal, what's a gilui of eir ha-memale?
I'm saying it's basically resisting alignment.
Say this,
no, what are they doing in Eden? The sunbathing in the Ziva Shkina. Okay.
Aber in Gan Eden ist doch mit Levushim, ist doch a Scheibe.
Okay, so that's the whole thing.
We're going to see soon in Gan Eden, there's a process of Hafshatas of Levushim. So 3,000 times and then beyond. We'll see right in the mind. So we have like this. We have the fact that in Gan Eden is the revelation of Eir ha-memale, and the Eir ha-memale is a defined light which has a certain character, which has a certain Inyan to it, and therefore it could only come to a place that matches its Inyan, And the Eid HaMemala is beyond a Gashmistic experience, and therefore the neshama has to leave the body before it can experience this Eid HaMemala. We're talking about a Eid and Safa Bilti Mugbal, and therefore it can be experienced by a Gashmistic person in this world because it's not defined to something particular. The Eid Chiluk, and another difference between Gan Eden and Hameisim Mashiach, the Gan Eden is b'chol shtei madregas. In Gan Eden, to get started, there are two b'chinas. There's Gan Eden Atachton and Gan Eden Heli. Or b'kol echad mem yeshribi madregas adin keith. And in each one of those madregas, there's an infinite amount of madregas without an end. The Talmidei Chachamim, they have no rest. This is supposed to be a good thing.
They're moving.
They're constantly moving from place to place. Why does the Gemara have to say? But why? You want to tell me?
They're never satisfied. Never satisfied. They're constantly growing.
And this is an inyan of a restlessness. It's an inyan of a lack of menucha.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ich weiß nicht. Ein lahem menucha. Menucha, das ist menucha gashmis. Fijn echt in van menucha ruchnis. And it says that we middag gaan ein lahem menucha. Ein lahem menucha. So zijn klaar.
Because we are striving to be tzaddikim.
Wel, de eeuwigste veel.
We shouldn't have menucha.
Oh, what were you going to say?
As long as you could do something,
you're not satisfied.
You have to do something.
You're not satisfied with what you have
because you are able to do. You are able to pile something.
Yeah.
So if you're able to be pile something, how could you can't have menucha because it's always a should I not?
Not only should I not, more than that.
Yeah,
it's like
a sense of loss by not.
There's a sense of loss by not. Yeah.
So there's no menucha.
So you're saying since there's Yelchu Mechayil Chayil, so how could you have menucha?
Also, you don't want to be stuck at the bottom of the rung. You want to keep going up and up and up. You want to go to the higher level.
Yeah, but why dafka tzaddikim being menucha?
Because they go Mechayil Chayil. Somebody doesn't go
Mechayil.
Tzaddikim is all the neshamas. It's not there. We're not excluding anybody.
By the time you get into there, you're ready, cleaned up. They put you through the ringer.
No, they ever says
you gotta go through the washing machine and everything is taken care of.
I was gonna say, but like when you get to when a person goes
without that, I just want to say without all that, the Yid is a tzaddik, like it says in Eis Beis, that mitzvahs are called tzedakah and mekayim mitzvahs are called tzaddikim. So all Yidden are tzaddikim.
But we know the part that basically, okay, if it's dafka tachlat yechom mekayim chayil, that makes sense in itself. But and maybe in added India is like when you go to the oil, whatever it is, and there's a certain shyness that we say over there, dafka, that basically that it's shamim and a shamim nitzelas, that there's a part basically that like not only could they still be pile for themselves, there's a certain Inyan that like, okay, I'm able to be meichel on myself, but to be meichel on somebody else, that's a real sense of loss. It's a real sense of I could have done something, I could do something, and that like mamish ein lehem menucha is because they could be pile something in tachasa
hakavanim.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm making that up.
No, it makes sense. No. It makes sense. The second part, you're right. That you can't really take a chayes on that. But the first part that you said, that when there's somebody who has the potential to do more than he's doing, and he senses that potential, if he hasn't reached it yet, in other words, he's still in the lower madrega, so in menucha, he can't. So long as he's a healthy person.
The idea to have the gilui of Eden, right? That's the higher gilui, right? Hameisim Mashiach is given chayil choyer that let to come to Eden.
That's coming to because Eden is bechlal not in the ilam hamusagim in.
That's why Yelchum means not even be'erech.
No. We're not noch far Eden. In Gan Eden itself, by the
way, but I think I was actually wrong earlier. So I'm not sure. But I take that back with regards to the to be weichel on the. I actually think that.
No, so Rebbe says
when we started this year, I asked my mashpia, could I give a shir? I'm definitely going to make mistakes. So he said that Deborah Hashav made when he founded Timchut Mimim, he made an agreement with the whole Seder Ishtalshalos that if the people are learning Chassidus will make mistakes in Seder Ishtalshalos, that it's going to be forgiven. So by this year,
the thing about Tanya.
Okay.
That was the thing about a Tanya, the beer in Tanya, if it's not exact, but if it's Meiser Yerushalayim,
that's another word.
It's the same.
Right.
Or this thing about the idea that it says, right. Ein Menucha. It's always in der is definitely and then we frag was is dein.
Du sagst eine gute Sache, aber es ist noch als eine Mischung von zwei Inyanim.
Ja,
Es ist zwei verschiedene.
half of what the cooler.
Es ist ein schöner Gedanke, aber es ist ein verschiedener Gedanke, nicht derselbe Gedanke.
Okay.
Gut, sagen wir
Jede Sache kann sein, das so.
Ja, es ist gut, es ist gut.
Eine Idee, wer ist der?
Paris wird Master sein.
Labels are brother? That's the just labels are brother. Label, man. Cousin, yeah.
He's
Good.
He's all only.
Let me learn it right there.
Not een.
Let me learn it.
Schwester.
Will stop. Is there another copy?
Yeah.
You know, you take this and I'll look with him.
Can Stefan, I'm looking at Gimel.
No, you take it and I'll look with him.
And I'll tell you, about 10, 12 lines into it. Say, the Zakter has a Upirish in La Menucha. I'm sorry, did we finish reading in the inside? In La Menucha, Yechel Mechail Al Choil, Sha'elim Tamid Madrega Madrega, they constantly go up, they elevate from one Madrega from one level to another. Upirish in La Menucha, who. Okay, so I don't know how completely slipping he's going to explain the Inland Menucha.
I'm not here.
We just started for so long in the Inland Menucha. I got lost in an old thought that I had for years, and I forgot that he's going to give over here a thought. He's going to talk about the Inland Menucha. What's the shot Inland Menucha?
Yeah, that's the question. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. Upirish Inland Menucha. What causes a lack of? Okay, so everything that we said before is nice for Fabengen. Over here in the Maimon Inland Menucha means something else. He's going to explain it like this. First of all, to get from one madrega to another madrega, there has to be a certain aveda, and it's not stam an aveda. We'll soon see what kind of aveda is, and we'll
In
understand
Gan
why
Eden are
stam
doing Aveda? I thought all the Aveda is down here. There's no Aveda over there.
So I go to Shaila.
Stop. Anyway.
I
guess, but there's some type of Aveda of Tvila and whatever.
Svenzach again was
The
minute.
mikveh never stops.
Svenzach again was minute. Sagt er what's the nature of this aveda? The Bali Tzach is mekedem Tvila b'nahardinoi. To go mechoil chol from one level to another level, first there has to be a Tvila. You have to dip. No, there's a lashon. There's a what's the word for it in English? Anyways, you have to dunk. Yeah, and the Nahar Dinah is a fiery river. Submerge. You have to submerge in the Nahar Dinah, which is a fiery river. And the point of this submersion in the Nahar Dinah is in order that the person should forget his asag and his tainig of the lower madrega. To use a very simple mashal, somebody who was raised in a very graba eifin, and he was explained that the only tainig that there is to enjoy food. And then he wants to, somebody takes him under his wing, and he wants to tell him, look, enjoying food is a shame, and we're not against it, and can stack an oven, but that this should be your whole life, that there's nothing else. It's mamash habehemet. So it's listening, there's a tainig from music. There's a tainig from other things. So he takes him, he starts introducing him to music and to midas, to art, to drama, to thought, to chakira, to philosophy, to whatever it is. He starts, and the guy is sitting over there and says, when I eat a candy, it tastes good. I'm doing this, it doesn't taste good. What are you telling me this timing over here? Yeah, so what does the guy have to do? He has to make him forget a little bit. His whole definition of tainug is based on, does it taste good in the mouth? So before this child is ready to understand that this is not the end of all, this is not the emet tainug, this is behemoth tainug, he has to first forget his notion of what is tainug. He has to forget it entirely. Once he forgets it entirely, then he could open up his mind and his heart to deriving pleasure from music and deriving pleasure from higher things. Al derech zeh, when the neshama is in a lower madrega, since it's stuck in the ideas and the notions, the concepts of the lower madrega, it can't appreciate that the higher madrega is actually a tainug. And in order to take tainug from the higher madrega, it has to forget his old definitions, his old levels.
The hard drive.
You have to erase the hard drive and start again. So there's a whole new thing. The gamha liya'atzma hi derech ha'amud. And then there's the aliyah itself. So after the submersion, now he didn't do the aliyah yet. Then the Ali itself goes dafka through this pillar, shebein madrega lemadrega, which is between two madregas. Shegam Ali deizehu misbatel masagas ekedemis. And also through this, he becomes misbatel, he loses his previous comprehension, his previous ideas. But the bittul that comes to Nahar Diner is the bittul mitzad ha'tachton. The bittul mitzad the Amud is the bittul mitzad the Elyon Shemeir. Mitzad l'mayla. And this is what we mean when we say that the aliyah from one level to another level is through Aveda, and that's why since they constantly have to work, they don't have menucha. Which this is the Aveda of Bittul, between amongst all of the works that a person has to do in his life, I think the hardest one is Bittul. Sein Vatel sich, I don't know, nearly that the hardest thing for a person to do is to put himself aside. Is Bittul. So it's not menucha, it's a very hard work. The dugmas Aveda lamata be'elam haza, similar to the Aveda which occurs in elam haza, sheklulusi litzanat sabrius, which even strengthens your question. You thought that Aveda is not get down here. About kalpanim, which the general idea of the Aveda in elam haza is in order to purify, to refine the creation, zichuch ubitul, Aveda melashin ibud eiris, just like you refine a piece of leather which is hard and and uncomfortable, and dafka through working it, through stepping on it, and all the other things that they do. They make it soft and supple, and it's a beautiful and comfortable thing. Okay.
Says the Rebbe Shah, that's what not every learning inside it comes to Samayim with the Ibn.
Okay.
How could a neshama not? Sorry, I thought you were.
Right?
No. How could a neshama not have bittul? It's a chelik l'kamim mamash, and it doesn't have a guf at this point. There's no ma'adol master.
On neshama mitzad
In Gan Eden.
mitzad sherish is a chelik l'kamim mamash, and neshama is befeder shabriya. Neshama is counted as a creation, definitively. This that you say that a neshama is a chelik l'kamim mamash, you're talking about the nitzutz alien that's in the nitzutz tachton. It's a sugya unto itself, but a neshama is a creation. It's not a chelik l'kamim mamash.
And this of it having bittul is because there's something that is ma'adol master. Or rather, it's a anytime there's a bria, there's a lack of bittul.
There's a certain there's a certain yeshus, even if it's a yeshus of kedusha, but it's something there. This topic is discussed at length when we get why you didn't have to be mekayim mitzvahs, because after through mitzvahs you get bittul, because the neshama itself is a yesh misha'ev, is the term that's used.
I thought that was neshamas begufim.
No. No, this that you say that a neshama is a chelik kamim mamash, it's not in the neshama in its entirety. It's the pnimius of the neshama. It's not Arab. If it's a chelik kamim mamash, then even when it's in a guf, it can't have. I'm saying that part remains the same as it was where it came from, and it's not. When we talk about the neshama, we're talking about the neshama as a creation, and within it is the chelik kamim mamash. Okay, just like the Aveda in this world is in two paths and two efforts. One is to stay away from that, and the other one is about say You also have to have the bittul in both of these kavim, and this is the difference between these two parts of the Aveda to Komi Madega, which is the bittul shal din ahar dinoir is doing Aveda the sun made akav yachol. Coming closer to the elements of the Gilead that he got from the alien. Okay. The calls who began Eden. All of this is, if we're talking about in which world, in the first world that's beyond our world, and that's the world of Gan Eden, where you have the Gilead of Hameisim, and therefore every level has its definition, and you must match the level if you want to be there. And therefore there has to be a bittul as the neshama ascends from one level to another level. However, is going to be an entirely new system. Even though in Hameisim Mashiach itself, there are still going to be aliyahs. In other words, there are still going to be chilukim, and therefore there's going to be a process of going up from one level to another level. Nevertheless, it won't be in this eifin that's in Gan Eden where you must leave. You have to leave the first level in order to reach the second level. When it comes to Hameisim Mashiach, even when one will be in his previous and in his earlier level, he can ascend to the higher level. The Rebbe believes it like Adayin Tzarech Iyun. So this is
if the Rebbe says,
this is obviously a big
it's
chiddush.
interesting, a chiddush that there should be Sumera in Gan Eden. I thought our Veda is finished already. Okay. I guess.
So good. So now we don't have to rush to Gan Eden.
It's interesting because the whole vart is basically that the neshama didn't come down here for itself, right? The neshama mitzad atzma can't, but I guess that's fair.
But there's two things.
It's not tikkun. It's not tikkun. It's a mila.
I'm saying the neshama. There's two things. Sometimes it's explained that the neshama ain't tzich tikkun, and therefore it came just to be pale in the tachton. And in other places it explains that the neshama actually gets a giluyah down here, a giluyah ha'atzmus that it never had before.
That's why I come. Yeah.
So there's two. You can't.
But they both make sense because tikkun isn't shot. There's something wrong with the neshama, quote unquote. There isn't anything to move. Rather, so there's there's always better is best, you know what I mean, kind of thing.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's interesting. I never considered this whole thing before. I never heard of it.
The Choreh over here, he's not talking about the neshama itself. He's talking over here of the tainug that the neshama perceives in Gan Eden. He's not talking about the neshama itself reaching a higher level, even though you must say that it's included because he has to become batal. Go on. It's a good question. But we'll move on right now. It's a good point, I should say, a good observation. Okay, that was going to give a bit of a beer, but it stays by an Adayin Tzarech Iyun because it's like an oxymoron. You're saying that he stayed with Madegasa Akidemes, and by B'Shai was Nis'ala to a higher Madega. Let's first say what's clear. What's clear is that in a system where you have to leave the earlier Madega, so you have to, in order to reach higher, you have to let something behind. You have to leave something behind. You can't take the tachton with you. If you want to go higher, you have to forget about the tachton and leave it behind. Mashenkin, when it comes to Hameisim Mashiach, there's not going to be such a concept. It's not going to be that nothing will be left behind. So therefore, and that's part of this idea that it says, will reach higher without leaving any part of us as it is. Okay. Why is it that in Gan Eden you have to leave the earlier Madega and Hameisim Mashiach you don't have to? So it says like this. The Hamshacha of Eirem Emala, to give life and to create the creations, it comes through a process of Ishtalshlus, where at first it's at a higher level, and then step by step, one Ishtalshlus after another Ishtalshlus, it lowers itself constantly. First, the Eirem Emala encloses itself in the spiritual creations. In other words, which don't have the limitations of physicality. And afterwards, he goes into lower beings. Luchot is still talking about spiritual beings, but lower spiritual beings, which are so much lower than the first level of Nivraim that the Mamala came into, that they're only like a mashal, like a parable to the higher types of beings. And then it descends even lower. As it's known, that he spoke 3,000 mishalim for something. In other words, he was mamshich, the same idea that existed all the way in Elam Habriya. He drew it down so that somebody in this world should be able to have somewhat of a hasagan through all of these mishalim. This is why the Aliyah and Gan Eden who Agilu Derem, like we mentioned before, it's only through this that he leaves his earlier level, just like drawing down the light of Mamala. Comes through a process of enclothing the light in a lower thing, and then in a lower thing, and then in a lower thing. If somebody wants to undo that, so you have to be mafshit levush. In order to reach higher, you have to get rid of the levush, which limited you to the lower idea, and then you could come to the higher level. So therefore, there must be bitul madrega akademis. Basically, what Deb is saying is that the explanation is, since it's a system of ishtalshelus, and in a system of ishtalshelus, everything goes through a process of being lowered more and more and more. So it's natural. It follows that if somebody wants to appreciate a higher level of hishtalshelus, a higher level of Eina Mamali, he has to get rid of all of those levushim that through which the Eir lowered itself. I'm going to read the brackets super fast, but just we said before, we're going to talk about the Shloshis Lafim Mashal and the levushim, the Hafshatas levushim. It's an interesting concept. Shleimar. This is that explored in several Mamorim. Even the Ovis, that's the Lashon, that they're sitting in Gan Eden more than 3,000 years. Established why will they come down even though they were living already in Gan Eden for 3,000 years? Because there's going to be a much greater Gili down here in Yemais HaMashiach, which is even higher, or in Tchiyas Hameisim, which is even higher than the Gili of Gan Eden. This then in the Ma'amarim, they're Medaik, Sheshim Gan Eden, El Yesim, Gimel Alafim Shani Yeshleimer, the Gimel Alafim Shanim, Dugmas Shleishis Alafim Mashal. The 3,000 years that the Ma'amarim are talking about correspond to the 3,000 Mishalim, which, as is explained in other places, Shem Keneged Gimel Elam is Biyah. The 3,000, each thousand is another world of the elements of Bri Yitzir Asiyah. The B'chal Elam ish elef madeges. V'zeh shemedaikim sheish m'gan Eden yeser m'gimel alafim shana. The b'meshach gimel alafim shana mafshitim kol halavushim amshalim the gimel elam is biyah. The neshamas that were there for 3,000 years, they removed the garments of the three elements of biyah. Uksheish m'gan Eden yeser m'gimel alafim shana misalim gam b'atzilis. And then when they're in Gan Eden beyond 3,000 years, now they already start going up in Atzilus itself. Nevertheless, even though these neshamas are already experiencing the Eidus of Atzilus, they're going to come down in a body. Why? Even when the Gil of Gan Eden is when they're mashit all over the levushim, which then they could already start experiencing Atzilus. Still, the Gil of Tchiyas Hameisim is even higher than that. Okay. So this is a system of Gan Eden, where the Eir goes down through levushim, and if you want to get to a higher level of the Eir, you have to remove those levushim so that you could reach the higher level of the Eir. Mashenkin aliyas Yemais HaMashiach, Mashenkin, the aliyas that are going to be in Yemais HaMashiach Yubaif and Shleit Stach Letzis Mimatzavim Madregas are going to be in a way that you don't have to leave the lower Madrega. Mikim and Sha'oz Yagil Dain Tzafak Likvul Vagili Gam Lamatos. Since then, there will also be the Gila of Eir and Tzafak Biltigvul. And this Gila will also be Lamata. Okay, so let's make a short sikkim of what David said. David says, yeah, you have Elam Haza, and this man is not talking about Elam Haza too much. I'll Kopanim Elam Haza before Yemais HaMashiach, right? Before Tchiyas Hameisim. Okay. Then you have in Gan Eden. So Gan Eden is the first place where you start receiving these Giluyim of Elikus. But he says like this: in Gan Eden, you have the Giluy of Eir Hamamala. And since it's the Gilu of Eir HaMamala, so therefore, in order to reach higher, you have to shed the lower levushim so that you can be a keli to receive the higher levushim. Masha'en kain in Yemais HaMashiach is going to be the Gilu of Eir Tzafah Bilti Gvul, and since it's Eir Tzafah Bli Gvul, so therefore the revelation could also be lamata, could also be down here in this world. And that's Yemais HaMashiach. Good, we'll leave it at that. There's a lot to explain, but we'll leave it at that. But Yemais HaMashiach is not the Tachlis Ha'ili. We still have Tchiyas Hameisim. Within Tchiyas Hameisim, we have two Madegas in Tchiyas Hameisim. So he says, Gam Hagila de Yemais HaMashiach Rak Gilei HaSeviv. Even the Gilui of Yemais HaMashiach, which is greater than the entire Gilui of Gan Eden, even the highest levels in Gan Eden, still Yemais HaMashiach itself is only the revelation of the Eir HaSeviv. And since it's the Eir HaSeviv, there will be different Madegas, and that's why in Yemais HaMashiach there will still be an Aliyah from one Madega to the other Madega, only it won't be in a way that you have to leave the earlier Madega. Mashenk in the Gili of Tchiyas Hameisim will be in general to all of the Yidden equally. Why? Because in Tchiyas Hameisim there's going to be the revelation of Atzmas Ein Sof, which is higher than any separation and differences of levels.
It's Atzmas.
Because it's Atzmas. Because there's Gili HaAtzmas. If Gili HaAtzmas has to take into consideration that this Yid is a tzaddik, kipshute, and this Yid is a tzaddik in another way, from tzaddik kima mitzvahs or tzaddik neshama or whatever it is, and therefore he can't come to the second Yid, he can't reveal himself to the second Yid, then it's not Atzmas. If the different levels of each neshama make a difference to where the light could come, it's not Atzmas. Atzmas comes everywhere the way he wants to come. However, in the Gili of Atzmas that you're going to have in Tchiyas Hameisim is the Guf Yushneinem, there are going to be two Inyanim. Hagili da Atzmas Ein Sof Shemshich Aladei Kiyam Mitzvahs. First, there's going to be a Gili of Atzmas Ein Sof that the Yidden drew down in our times by performing mitzvahs, and through this revelation of Atzmas of the mitzvah that came about through the mitzvahs, they're going to reach to a higher level. What is the revelation of the mitzvahs themselves going to do? This revelation is going to reveal the mila of the Yidden themselves. What is the mila of the Yidden themselves? That the Eibishter calls them, these are my things. They're the branch that I planted, the work of my hands that I take glory in. And this mila in the Yidden is even that comes inside this, that didn't come from the Eibishter himself. This is even higher than the Gilui Likus that the Yidden accomplished through Limud Torah and Kiyum HaMitzvahs. So to get back to what we started, the introduction to this Maimer explains to us very well that a Yid is the highest thing, no matter which Yid, no matter how, no matter when, and he doesn't need anything. He just needs that it should be revealed. And when a Yid performs Torah and mitzvahs, studies Torah and performs mitzvahs, it reveals the essence of the Yid. And what's the essence of the Yid? That he's connected to the essence of the Eibishter. Which the Sherish, the source of the Neshamas, is in the essence of the Eibishter, even higher than the Sherish of Torah mitzvahs. And also in the body of the Yid, there's the Bechira of Atzmas. And therefore in Tchiyas Hameisim, the body is going to be here. Because Tchiyas Hameisim, the whole idea of Eden, now we can put it all together, the whole idea of Eden, the whole idea of the second level Tchiyas Hameisim that Rebbe introduced over here in this Maimer, the whole idea over here is the Gili HaAtzmas. And this Gili HaAtzmas is going to be to every single Yid, and that's why Kol Yisrael Yeshem Chelik Le'elam Haba. That's why every single Yid will be by Tchiyas Hameisim, because Gili HaAtzmas is to Kol Yisrael B'Shavah. It's Atzmas. And it's not only to Kol Yisrael B'Shavah, it's also to the body, because the body is connected to Atzmas. There's B'chiras HaAtzmas in the body. So in the beginning of the Maimer, we said, the beer, according to the other drushim, that since the guf is Mekayim mitzvahs, so therefore it's going to be there during the time of Kiyum mitzvahs. Over here, he says a much more pneumistic beer, because the guf is be'etzem shayich to the Gili of Tchiyas Hameisim. Because in the guf there's B'chiras HaAtzmas, and the Gili of Tchiyas Hameisim is the Gili of Atzmas, and therefore the guf is in the guf, and therefore the guf is a part of Tchiyas Hameisim because it's connected to Atzmas. The guf itself is connected to Atzmas.
All the artists is Samach Vav and to understand this, you gotta learn Samach Vav.
Okay, so let's make a Samach Vav share.
So the Mila that of Tchiyas Hameisim is that